All right, we now welcome on Kevin Sweeney. He's at Sports Illustrated, also the founder of College Basketball Central. Go check out the College Basketball Central podcast. Kevin, how we doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. So let's start this off. Give us your background. Like, where are you from, and why did you start this College Basketball Central thing?
I mean, it's kind of a wild story. So I'm from upstate New York. I'm from Albany,
Mhm.
New York, and for the listeners that don't know the area, it's a very unique sports town in that Albany is large enough to be like it's large enough to be a place, but it's not large enough to have any like pro teams of sorts, or even a big like FBS college football team.
Mhm.
They have University of Albany is at FCS, and people root for Syracuse and stuff, but there isn't a team to latch onto. People that they're Yankees fans and they're Giants fans and Knicks fans, whatever. But there isn't a team to latch onto, and so Albany almost takes on like a Big East towns flavor, where they root for their two college basketball teams, Siena and Albany, particularly Siena. And Siena's a MAC school, but it's treated like a Big East program there. They play in a downtown arena that seats 15,000. They put 7,000 butts in seats at games, and they were really good when I was growing up. They were when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. They won the MAC every year. They beat Vanderbilt in the NCAA tournament one year. They beat Ohio State in the NCAA tournament one year. So like I was just kind of thrust into this world of mid-major college basketball in particular. I have some pretty strong family ties in Siena, and so I just fell in love with them. Fell in love with mid-major basketball as a whole. And my junior year of high school, so in 2016, yep, that's the year. I started my little rinky-dink WordPress blog so I could talk about college basketball, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And kind of gradually went from I got 100 Twitter followers. Wow, like I've made it to oop, now I've got 1,000. Oop, now I've got 5,000. Now I know, I have 10,000, and I've kind of grown it while I've been here at Northwestern. I'm a student there. I'm a senior now. Um, my freshman year at Northwestern, the first team that I had a press credential to cover with my little blog was Loyola Chicago, and that year was the year they made the Final Four. And so, that was a really cool experience, and further indoctrinated me into the world of college hoops. And now I'm a senior. I'm an intern at Sports Illustrated and do a lot of their college basketball coverage this year. I'm their resident bracketologist, I guess. I do 2 bracketologies a week. I write a column every week. I do some feature stories. I wrote one actually about Loyola Chicago just last week, which is a lot of fun. So it's a little bit of everything. It's been quite the journey, quite the ride, and very very appreciative of everyone who's helped along the way, because I think it really has taken a village of people who've been nicer to me than they really should have been when I knew nothing, and I still don't know much, but I know more than I did. So, I guess that's the story. It's a complex one. I started the podcast when I was, I think, just freshman in college, and kind of on a whim, and that's gone really well. So you just keep adding things to your plate. Eventually, I'm going to run out of hours in the day, but I haven't yet. So we're going to keep plugging.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked it out, go check it out right now. CollegeBasketballCentral.com, CBB Central. All right, so let's start this off. I'm a huge Duke fan. You obviously can see the background, whatever. Is there any realistic way they make the NCAA tournament?
I think there's a path. Unlike with Kentucky, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a real path. I think would it require them rattling off five of the last 6? I think that are on the schedule. I think probably, and that would get you in the conversation. I also think the ACC tournament will be so wide open. I don't think I would be scared of Virginia right now. I mean, Virginia's a solid
Mm-hmm.
basketball team. They're not unbeatable. Certainly, Florida State made them look pretty bad just a couple nights ago. And Florida State's got talent, but their season's been very disrupted. And where will they be come mid March? So I think the path in the conference tournament is very viable for Duke. And I think the big question for them is just, can they ever find some consistency? And there just
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been a stretch. I think you thought maybe when they won 3 straight in early January, and they beat Wake Forest, okay, maybe they're turning the corner, and it just hasn't happened. The blowout went over Clemson, okay, maybe they're turning the corner, go on the road, lose Miami. So it's going to take a consistency that they haven't had, but I don't think this is like such a broken team the way Kentucky is, or even Michigan State. I think this is a team that could conceivably make a push, although obviously without Jalen Johnson, the road gets a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, so earlier this week, Duke forward Jalen Johnson announced that he was foregoing the rest of the season, opting out, whatever you want to call it. He quit, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, look, I don't know Jalen Johnson. I don't want to, I don't want to
Mhm.
demonize the kid. It is what it is. But, you know, there has been widespread conversation among the basketball industry, and people I know, people I don't know, that have told me, like, look, you know, his people were not happy with what his role was at Duke, with what the direction of Duke this season was. And at some point, it became a situation where it was easier for him not to play than to play. And he said, "All right, I'm going to pack my bags," and that's fine. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a business decision. I understand it. He's going to have to answer for that business
Mhm.
decision when NBA scouts interview him come April, May, June, whatever. But that's the bottom line. He played 8 minutes, and then the next day he packs up his locker. That's not a coincidence, folks. Like, it is what it is. And again, I don't feel the need to like try to like assassinate his character like some people have tried
Mhm.
to do. I don't feel the need to be like, oh, we should pay back a scholarship. Like, come on,
Yeah.
like, what are we doing? Like, but yeah, I mean, he quit on his team. Like, that's fine. And there's a reason why he was at 3 high schools in 3 years, and quit IMG mid year. Like, this isn't new, and it's something that he's going to have to answer for. He's as talented, I think, as probably anyone in this draft. Maybe a little bit behind your Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley's, and Jonathan Kuminga's, but he's super super talented. But he's going to have to answer for that, and really why this whole season at Duke he's been, I would say, a little bit uninterested on the court at times. And I know
Mhm.
people will say, oh, he had the foot injury. I know
No,
some
his
people will,
defense has been atrocious.
he doesn't want it to defend. Like it's there are a lot of guys who are banged up who still go out and defend. Jalen
Yeah.
Johnson hasn't gone out and defend.
He has these flashy blocks. It'll be like like January LeBron, where you think, oh, you see this fancy block from House of Highlights from LeBron, but in reality, he didn't play a lick of defense in that game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the bottom line with him was like I don't think he ever was interested in being, the one and done guy who leaves a legacy, right? Like,
Hmm.
there are guys who come in, they bring energy and toughness. He was a lot more Cam Reddish than even RJ Barrett was. Than an RJ Barrett. He was a lot more, okay, I'm this talent kid. This is a pit stop on my path to the NBA, and I'm going to treat it as such. And if everyone around me at Duke doesn't treat me with a certain level of reverence and treat me with the talent that I am, then I'm gonna see you later. And eventually, he said, "I'm gonna see you later." So that's all I
Yeah,
got.
my only problem with the whole thing is these like crazy Duke fans who are like, oh, pay back the scholarship, like you said, or oh, he's can't name him a Duke player anymore. He's done all this. It's like, all right, like don't kill the kid, but like he clearly quit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think like there's a difference between being quitting and being a quitter. Like I don't think we need to be like, oh yeah, like Jalen Johnson quits at everything he does. Oh, he doesn't care.
Hmm.
He doesn't want to work. Whatever. All we know is the situation at Duke, and
Yeah.
the situation at Duke was he didn't want to work at Duke. He didn't want to fight through it. He didn't want to sit on the bench when Coach K didn't want to play him. He didn't he didn't want to go through the adversity of this team losing three straight. Right, like that's the bottom line.
Hmm.
It's nothing else. This situation does not look good for Jalen Johnson. And will Jalen Johnson be a top 10, top 15 pick? Yeah, he will be because he's 6'9" and does things on the basketball court that very few people can do. But again, he's going to have to answer for it, and I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this lit a spark under this Duke team. But all right, that's enough Duke talk. They're not good enough for more time. So let's talk about the two biggest teams. Can anybody beat Gonzaga and Baylor?
I think teams can. I don't think they're unbeatable, but I will
Hmm.
say this, and I've said this on a few different other shows as well. I think this Gonzaga team is the best college basketball team we have seen since the 38-1 Kentucky team. And I think that this Baylor team is really close right behind them. So
Hmm.
these are two generationally good teams. And that 38-1 Kentucky team had a one next to its name because they were beatable. It was
Yep.
possible. And Wisconsin did it. And I think there are teams out there that absolutely have the ability to do. I think a team like Iowa has the high. I think you're looking for high variance teams, right?
Hmm.
Iowa could make 23s and beat you. I know they don't defend. If they make 23s, they're going to be tough to beat. Alabama, they defend and they can go make 15 23s. That's a team that strikes me as a team that could do this. Do I think a team can just line up talent wise and just say, hey, we're a good basketball team, we're going to beat you? No, I don't think so. But I
Hmm.
think there are certainly some high variance teams that could pull it off, and I think there are some teams with star power that could go make a push. Right? Like I think Iowa Sumu at Illinois is the clutchest player in college basketball, one of the clutchest players I've ever seen in this sport. And if this game winds up close, they already played Baylor. That game, the final score was 82-69. It was a lot closer than that. Baylor pulled away late. Baylor just had a little bit more energy. I think Illinois will be much better positioned for a game like that come March. So, I think both teams are beatable, but if you ask me, those two are the field, give me those two.
Okay, that was my next question was, are you taking Gonzaga or Baylor or the field?
I would take Gonzaga, number 1, Baylor, number 2, the field, number 3, if I had to rank them.
Number 3, who are you taking to beat them?
Man.
Who's the top of the field? Is it Michigan?
I think it's Michigan. Yeah, I think it's Michigan. I think between the ability that Hunter Dickinson has to control a game in the paint, combined with the fact that they have multiple guys who can beat you off the bounce. Livers has improved so much in his career from shooter into full-blown, guy who could take you off the bounce, guy who can play pick and roll, etc. Mike Smith's been steady at point guard. Wagner is an impact player, both shooting the ball and defensively. They have depth. I think Michigan is probably the third best team, and probably one of the only 2 to 3 teams in the country that could try to line up man for man with Gonzaga or Baylor and try to beat them. The other teams, like I said, it's kind of more a high variance situation where, okay, we can shoot the ball out of the gym, or okay, we're Houston, we can really defend and lock Gonzaga down and play a low scoring game. Like, I think there are some situations like that, but I think if you just want to 2 teams playing their best basketball, Michigan is probably one of the only 2 to 3 teams in the country that has a shot against Gonzaga and Baylor.
Yeah, my only concern with Gonzaga is playing in the West Coast Conference. You just cruise through January and February, and I mean that's clearly why I feel like they're trying to schedule a non-conference game right as soon as possible, because they have cruised. I mean, not one game has been remotely close.
And I think that's a little concerning, honestly, with them, because there have been some games where they didn't have to wake up, and I think the Pacific game was a really good example. There have been a few games where the first 8 minutes they've gotten punched in the mouth, and they're like, all right, we're going to make a run, make a run.
Yeah.
Pacific, they let it happen for like 24 minutes, and they can't do that in the NCAA tournament. The day they beat Pacific by 18 points, they would have lost to a lot of teams that day. Maybe not, not a 16 seed, maybe even not an 8-9 game, but in the Sweet 16, you better come ready. And we've seen, I think the best, honestly, example of a game where Gonzaga looked, touchable was the West Virginia game. West Virginia team probably going to be a 4 seed, maybe a 3. Yes, Jalen Suggs wasn't healthy throughout it, but they took away one option. He still played 26 minutes, and they took away Suggs. They took away Timmy for the most part. Timmy had one of his worst games of the year, and they hung it. West Virginia did. They were right there until the very end. And so, to me, those are the types of teams that you start to say, okay, they might have a shot. And I think the fact that they haven't been battle tested recently, look, like they're still really, really good. And I'm not going to question I'm certainly not going to question the schedule. They played who they played, and they've done a really good job of scheduling those up games in the non-conference. But it is going to be an adjustment when they get thrown on the court with a team like West Virginia that's super athletic, when they've been dealing with Pacific and Pepperdine for the last month. Absolutely.
So I'm going to give you some teams. You tell me whether you think they can make a legit run and tell me why. So let's start off Virginia.
I don't think they can get past the Sweet 16. I don't agree. I think first off, this is not a vintage Tony Bennett defense. When you look at Ken Pom, this is the worst defense that Virginia's had since 2013. And this is not a team that's just locking you down the way that other Virginia teams have. They don't have that in their arsenal. Now, are they better offensively? Yeah, they are. They're so much better offensively. The jump they've made has been incredible. And I do think, to have 3 big guys in Hauser, Murphy, and Huff who can all shoot the 3 at such a high level, I mean, that's going to be really hard to guard. They can get on a run here. But we've seen against teams with upper-level athleticism, Florida State and Gonzaga, that they haven't matched up well at all. And I think that's a huge concern. Combine that with the struggles against San Francisco and Kent State, 2 teams that would probably be like 13 seeds. I think Virginia's vulnerable. And look, they got some time, and they're going to figure it out. And I don't think they'll lose in the first round, but I also don't think this is a Final Four sleeper waiting to happen. I don't think that's this type of team.
Houston.
I'm a believer. I really am. I think, mentioned defense. This team really guards you. They really get into you. They make every pass difficult. I remember very early in the season, they played Texas Tech in a news report game. and Texas Tech looked completely baffled as to how to get anything done offensively. Purdue's the only thing they ever got was some free throws. Mac McClung got to the line a bunch, basically by creating his own shot 1-on-5, and eventually we just get bumped.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a team that has 2 to 3 guys who can go create their own shot. DeJon Jarreau, Quentin Grimes, and Marcus Sasser can all go get a bucket. And then they're tough. They have guys who understand roles. Justin Gorham's transferred from Towson. This is a guy who was not very good, at his first year at Houston, and he has turned into one of the best rebounders in college basketball this season. He has been awesome and such an energy bringer for them. So I think they could, again, I think they will be. I mean, people talk about the Gonzaga schedule. There's not a lot of meat on the bone of this AAC schedule that they play. A lot of 125th ranked South Florida and 140th ranked Temple,
and they get blown out by EC one random night.
Yeah, the East Carolina game, like whatever, it's one game, whatever. I'm not gonna judge about it, but they haven't been tested, and they're gonna get tested a little bit here with Wichita and Cincinnati and Memphis down the stretch. But I mean, they're not going to be coming off the rigors of a season. Maybe it benefits you to a degree because you're not as banged up, but at the same time, you line up for the first time against a Texas Tech caliber team in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16, different ballgame, different animal.
This team's been getting a lot of hate lately, but Iowa.
Man,
because I love Iowa. I just can't help myself.
They're so much fun. I think Frederick, when he's around, is such a critical piece for them because he means they're always spacing the floor and always have shooters out there that makes them impossible to guard. I think they can make a run. I'm going to say they can. Now, I don't think they can win 6 in a row and win a championship. But do I think they could win 4 in a row? I do. I think they could get to a Final Four, especially depending on matchups, because they have the threat to shoot you out of the gym. And I do think they're a little bit more equipped than they've been to play a game when they don't shoot it great because of guys like Keegan Murray who can defend, and Connor McCaffrey and Joe Toussaint. It's still going to be tough if they don't make shots, and I think the game pressure will set in. But this is a team that I think can make a Final Four. I'm not wedded to the idea. But if you said, can they go or can they not? I think I would lean on the yes, they can side.
Alabama.
Yes, 100% yes. I love this team. I love Nate Oates. I've loved him since he was at Buffalo. Really watched and charted his rise as a coach. And, I think the fun thing about Alabama is they packaged like D'Antoni ball into a guy in Nate Oates who once had his Buffalo coaching staff wear mechanic shirts in pregame because we're the tough basketball team, and goes in press conferences and calls out Coach K and goes in press conferences. We had a COVID problem, but we wanted to play because, because we think pausing is not, is really because you don't want to play. Things like that. Like he says these, wild things and you don't have to agree with everything he has to say, but he is opinionated. He has a lot of fun. And, he is the perfect guy to bring like analytics of basketball into like random, like, Southern college basketball because Alabama fans, if you had like some math nerd, if you had like Kyle Smith or Todd Golden, former San Francisco guys, if you had them walk into Alabama, they'd be like, get this guy out of here. Like, who is this guy? And Neros comes in with his, Midwestern accent. And, I think that we should, I think your Coach K wouldn't be saying what he's saying if he hadn't lost 2 straight. So, but by the way, we're never taking a mid-range shot. So I love Nate Oates. I think he's a perfect coach for this team. They're really, really talented. Like, that's the thing. They have 3 or 4 guys who are going to play in the NBA. They have shooters. And, combine that with the fact that they really get into you defensively. And that's going to matter come March. And I don't think anyone realizes in the country that they have the number 2 defense in Ken Pop. Like, no one realizes that. And it's credit to what Oates has built. And I think they're a legit threat. I really do.
I don't know why I don't believe in them, but Ohio State.
It's hard for me to shake the memory of them losing to Northwestern when I was there like a month and a half ago, knowing what I know now about Northwestern. Northwestern's a different team then. They're playing a lot better. They're a lot more confident. They made threes, whatever. But it's hard to shake it. I think Ohio State might be the most accomplished team in the country with all of their quadrant 1 wins. They've done a terrific job. I don't think they have a takeover player. I think they need that. I think they will run into trouble, once you hit the second weekend of the tournament when you're facing other elite teams. I don't know if they can string 2 together in a row and get to the Final Four. I'm going to say no. I think they bow out early.
Oklahoma.
I think they're one man short. They're not quite talented enough. They're a really solid basketball team. Lon Kruger's an excellent coach. I was talking to Carlin Hartman, who's one of their assistants, 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me, how much their season has changed since really a COVID issue sparked their problem solving. They were playing two bigs. It wasn't really working. Brady Manick had COVID. They're shooting 4-man. And all of a sudden they're like, I guess we have to play Elijah Harkless, this 6'3", 200-pound bulldog of a guard from transfer Cal State Northridge. He comes in there, he's playing the 4, and all of a sudden everything starts working, and it just clicks. And so they kind of found it by accident, and it's been kind of amazing to watch their growth. I just don't think they're quite talented enough to make a run like this. But Kruger's an excellent coach, and if they get the right matchups, watch out.
Last one, Villanova.
I'm not buying. I'm not. I don't think they defend. And look, people will tell us they're lead offensively. Look at the numbers. They're lead offensively. Jay Wright, lead offensive coach. Great. The numbers say that. Put them on tape. Watch how many difficult shots they have to make.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they have great shooters. They really do. But they take a lot of difficult shots. And it's because Colin Gillespie, Justin Moore, and Caleb Daniels, they aren't elite, space creators. They aren't guys who are go in and get one off the bounce. And so their easiest offense is when they get it inside to Robin Sternal. They need to do that as much as they can. And they're very solid. They're very well coached. They do everything pretty well. But I don't think they can win if they get against another team that can really score. We saw that this weekend against Creighton. Creighton put some points up, and Villanova couldn't stay with them shot for shot. I think that's concerning. So I'm not in on the Villanova bandwagon this year. Really not in on anyone from the Big East right now. Just not buying it.
So, okay. What do you see the selection committee relying on most this year? Because we're going to see a lot of those weird, someone's going to be 15-8, and another team's going to be 12-4, something weird like that. Do you see them relying on the eye test, strength of schedule? What do you see?
I don't think they're going to reinvent the wheel. I think first off, once you have a 15-plus game sample size, I don't think it matters too much. We saw them reward Michigan with the 1 seed in the top 16 reveal. I think you feel pretty good. I feel pretty good that the committee's not going to be oh, well, Michigan only played 15 games and Houston played 22 games, so Houston gets the nod over Michigan. I don't think that doesn't appear to be happening. I think they're going to rely on the metrics for the most part, but they're not going to be wedded to them. Obviously, a team like Colgate is somehow still top 15 in the net. I don't think they're getting an at-large bid. They're nowhere close to that. I think for the most part, it's going to look very similar. They're going to really reward quadrant 1 wins. They're going to justify the decisions they make, not based on what they actually decided. I've always said that the committee, really, they make a decision and then they produce the justification for the decision. They don't make the decision based on the justification and then provide you that justification. I think that's what we'll see again. inconsistency for the most part. But at the same
they can
time,
justify an 8-8 Duke for all I care.
Right? Yeah, they'll figure it out. But it's I think the biggest storyline with the committee will be there will be teams that are closer to 500 than normal. And will the committee say no go, or will the committee? They can technically let in anyone this year. They don't even have to worry about them teams being over 500. But a team like Maryland, in particular, is going to be 13-12. Are you going to put in a 13-12 team? I wouldn't, but I think the committee will. And if the committee doesn't, that will prove that they don't care at all in the past who you've beaten as long as you have a pretty record. Because there's no difference qualitatively between this Maryland team at 13-12 and a Maryland team in a normal year that played 5 more bye games and goes 18-13. Literally nothing different. Nothing at all. The metrics are the same. The quadrant 1 was the same. But if they don't put in Maryland this year because their record isn't pretty enough, we'll know what it is. So it'll be an interesting teaching exercise, I suppose.
Obviously, we don't know the seeding or whatnot, but what 1 to 2 seed right now do you see getting upset that first weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously heavily matchup dependent. I think Ohio State feels a little vulnerable. Yeah. Right. They have this combination of not being elite on the defensive end, not having a guy who can take over. They're big, but they're not overwhelmingly large where an 8-9 game would be overwhelmed by their size. I think Ohio State would be the most vulnerable 1 seed. I also think on the 2 line, I think a team like Houston is a little bit vulnerable just because, like we've talked about, they haven't been tested as much. And they could wind up in a difficult spot. But I think those 2 would be the ones that jump out. Doesn't mean I don't believe in them as teams, but I think those are teams that are somewhat vulnerable.
Okay, so I want to get your opinion on this. They announced that the first 4 will be played on Thursday, and the real tournament, the second round, whatever you want to call it, starts Friday and goes till Monday instead of the typical Thursday to Sunday schedule. Do you like that? Because it feels like that Thursday's better than Christmas of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I'll miss it. I understand why it needs to happen,
Yeah.
and like it's a protocol thing, and I get it, and it's not going to make me less sad about it. But I'll miss the Thursday. I think the Thursday is so much better than getting the Monday. Like it's gonna be nice to really be hoops on Monday, but so much
it's
better.
Gonna be it's just weird.
It's not the same. But at the same time, I do think that the downwind effect of having the Sweet 16 on Saturday and Sunday and having all those games be standalone will be an awesome exposure for the sport.
Yeah, that is awesome because
it's going to be awesome. I think the sport will get so much attention. People are jonesing for March Madness. They're going to see it back. I mean, I'm hopeful. It sounds like we're going to have some fans in the building as well, from what I'm hearing. That's very exciting. I think potential to have a 20% capacity in an NBA arena with a huge game. Gonzaga on the ropes against a high quality team. I mean, that's everything you can ask for. It really is, and I'm excited for that as much as losing that Thursday stinks. So I'll be locked in on Friday. I'll be locked in on Saturday. I'll be locked in every single day you give me. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. My last question: who's your dark horse to win the NCAA tournament?
So I hate to go to the well again, but Loyola Chicago is sitting there, and
not Northwestern.
Hey man, I think at this point I should just pivot my rooting interests. Like I've been around this Loyola team a bunch. They're a ton of fun to be around. I know people there. It's 4 miles away from campus. I'll swing on. But I think Loyola. If you're looking for the Cinderella dark horse mid major, I mean it's clearly Loyola. They're top 10 in KenPom. They're better, I think, in every way than the Final Four team was. And look, the Final Four team hit 3 buzzer beaters. And you're not probably going to do that again. But Loyola can play with anyone in the country. They defend you. They really pass. They play together. Porter Moshe's the lead coach. I think that's a team. And then on the high major side, a team that I see as kind of a Cinderella watch would be, I'll say Tennessee.
Wow.
Maybe doesn't feel like a Cinderella, but they're maybe like a 4 or a 5.
Yeah.
And they haven't clicked. Every time they start to turn the corner, they take a step back. And this team has top 5 talent in the country. If it puts it all together come March, they're going to make a run, and I wouldn't want to see them my side of the thing. So I like Tennessee a lot. I think they could be dangerous. I think UConn as well. Toss them in there as well. They're going to be underseeded because of Bouknight's injury. Now that James Bouknight's back, they're a fun team to watch, and they're going to be really tough to beat.
All right, Kevin. Well, this was a ton of fun. Thanks for coming on, and go follow his Twitter page at CBB_Central, and go check out the podcast, CBB Central Podcast. Kevin, thanks again, man.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. Always appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to a great March.
All right. Appreciate it, man.